Hey, before I get started here, I just want to let you know that the way I say the name of this company is different than the way they say it in the United States. It's more of a public service announcement. So many people write some very nasty things in the comment section that I'm an idiot and I don't know how to say the name of the company. Yes, in the United States, you call this a Mazda3, but in every other English-speaking country outside of the US around the world, we say Mazda. So this is a Canadian review. This car is called a Mazda3 in this country. In the States, you call it a Mazda3, but I'm not an idiot. So what do we have here? We have the all-new 2014 with SkyActiv technology. It's a full suite of technology that Mazda has implemented, from the chassis, transmission, engine, and the way the car is designed to be built as one cohesive design. I encourage you to go and watch the original review I did when this car was first introduced in this country, but I'm getting a chance to drive it again for a full week, and next week I'll have the GT version. So the price of this Mazda 3 starts at around $16,000 if you get the sedan, and a hatchback starts around $17,000, all the way up to around $30,000 if you get the GT, either in the sedan or the hatchback. You have to admit they have done a fantastic job with the styling on this car. The front especially has an aggressive look with a long hood, swept lines around the back, but there is a bit of a problem with that. When you have the swept look around the back, it compromises a couple of things. One is inside the car if you're the driver trying to look out, and also passengers in the back seat. Those side windows taper down along the back and they get quite small. The hatch around the back has a more swept look as well. It's not as square as the previous Mazda 3, therefore the window is a little smaller and the opening is a little bit smaller as well. But it's probably a nice compromise to make, to have the sexy look of this car with slightly less functional outward visibility. Regardless, it's a good looking car. It's available with two different engines, and inside is just as stylish. The base engine here is the 2-liter direct injection SkyActiv engine. What they're able to do is get a much better spray and injection into the cylinder and burn as much energy as possible, helping to push the car down the road and use as little fuel as possible, or in other words, trying to get as most out of each drop of fuel as they possibly can. And it works. This car is capable of some good mileage. The base model 2-liter direct injection SkyActiv gas engine is rated at 6.8 liters per 100 kilometers in the city and 4.9 on the highway. And it also delivers in terms of drivability. This car really does feel fantastic. Put your foot into it and it's instantly responsive. That's because of the direct injection. And it also has a wonderful new 6-speed automatic transmission that was developed at the exact same time. Often they'll take an old transmission and bolt it onto a new engine, or vice versa, and it doesn't always come out with great results. This one, they work perfectly together. At 155 horsepower, this car really is quite powerful for a base engine. Look at cars like the Honda Civic, 143 horsepower. Other models have like 138 or 148 horsepower. So 155 is pretty good. There is a movement afoot to smaller turbocharged engines instead of having just direct injection, also turbocharged, so that's something to think about. As I mentioned off the beginning, I am going to get the 2.5-liter GT version of this car next week to have for another full test week. So it's going to be interesting to drive the two, but I got to tell you, for most people, this engine, 155 horsepower, and the responsiveness of the engine and the direct injection technology is working wonderfully, and it might be worth keeping some money in the bank and just getting this car. What Mazda has done with the steering, even though it's electric power steering, is they've quickened the ratio of the steering so that they try to get over the fact that it does have a quite numb feel on center. When you turn the steering wheel, the car reacts rather quickly and it gives it a more dynamic feel. Another thing to think about is there's some road noise with this car. Other cars in this class might be a little bit quieter, something to consider when you're out for a test drive. Well, the inside of this Mazda 3 is very simple. The one prominent feature is the screen that's placed on the dash, the same way that Mercedes-Benz is doing with their B-Class, the CLA and the GLA. Looks like an iPad stuck on the dash, and it's not exactly my favorite look. I like a more integrated look, to be honest with you. Some people really like this. Sometimes they hide away, like in Audi products, but you decide whether you like that. There is a center controller here that's very reminiscent of Audi's MMI. It's got buttons around it. It's easy to operate. You've got the volume next to it, which is very similar to Audi as well. In this trim level, there's no automatic climate control. You have to go up a level to get that. By the way, that screen is not available on the bottom model. It's only available in the middle and upper trim levels. When you turn it on, one of the problems I have with it is the radio does not give you a list. You know, an Audi or and BMW's iDrive, it shows you and you can just scroll through all the radio stations. With this car, it doesn't do that. I haven't been able to find it anyway. You have to sort of scroll through with the button on the steering wheel. So that's one thing I think they could improve. Now, as I mentioned off the top with the sweeping lines, the windows out the back are really, they're really quite narrow, and the side of the door is quite high. Little kids sitting back there looking out, if they can't see out the window, trust me on this, they get sick. So that's something you really have to notice. If you got little kids and they can't see out the back window, that can be a problem. The roof is quite low as well. But overall, a great looking car. Is it the most functional compared to the old Mazda 3? I'm not quite sure. I really enjoyed driving this base 2-liter car. Next week, I get a chance to drive the GT with the 2.5-liter. I have driven it in the past, but this one really has surprised me by how much I like it. It feels light and tossable. The steering is good. The chassis is fantastic. It doesn't put a foot wrong, maybe a little bit more road noise than I'd like, but overall a good package. The car you see here is the GS in the sport trim. When you add in automatic transmission for $1,200, $300 for this red paint, and $500 for the convenience package that gets you leather steering wheel, shifter, handbrake, automatic windshield wipers, and headlights, it brings the price up to about $22,600. That's not a problem. It's when you start adding on features and you get into the more expensive GT trim, it can go all the way up to 30 grand. Here's something to consider. There's a new car coming out this summer, 170 horsepower from a turbo direct injection engine, independent suspension, disc brakes all the way around, a proven platform, and it starts at $19,000. That's the 7th generation Golf, which is coming very, very soon. So this car definitely has the looks and the style and the go right now, but I would like to see those two cars back to back to see which is the winner in terms of driving and handling, but also price.